Chapter 20. Capture. I sat in a cell. The walls were blue and silver, covered in metal sheeting. It was cold, which was nice, given that it was still a warm autumn outside. The bed they'd given me, surprisingly, was comfortable. My armor was gone. Despite the fact that I had my connections available, I didn't see a point to having it on. There was no escape from this. I'd found myself wrapped up in comfy sheets until only a moment ago. Voices outside my door had woken me. I sleuthed over to the door to listen to them. There were no windows to the hallway. I could have no way of seeing who was talking. I pressed my ear up to the metal door. The voices had stopped. I frowned. Pneumatic steamed inside the door. I felt it through my connection to the gases before I heard it, but the sound still stunned me. My ears rang. The door swung open and I stumbled backwards. The bronze Seneva stepped into the room with me. I shook my head and regained my senses. I drew my staff and got low, ready to strike him. "Calm it, my main man," he said. His voice was jovial, just as the vision had shown me it should have been. I raised an eyebrow. He closed the door behind me. "I'm just here to chat." "Okay, sure," I quizzed. "Relax, man," he smiled. His armor fell off his body. Revealed underneath was a tall, blonde man in his young 20s, maybe, of a godly build. His face was chiseled, and despite my unwillingness to admit it, incredibly attractive. He moved with an acquired charm and grace, taking a seat on the bench in my room next to the door. I relaxed my stance and put my weapon away. "It's hard to relax," I said. I lifted my shirt up to show him my bruise. "It bloody well hurts." His face dropped. "Aye, Jesus," he stuttered away. "I'm sorry." "Why'd you do that?" I asked, although I knew why. He didn't want me to escape. It was simple. "I thought you'd dodge it or stop running, but you just held your ground," he frowned. "Will it hurt when I go back into my armor?" I asked. "It might," he said. "Your soul will have healed, but your Alyss won't. It doesn't heal. The dents just build up." I bit my lip nervously, touching my stomach. "But the pain in your Alyss won't subdue if you haven't gotten your armor on. Maybe while you've got time in here, become Makey. Let the pain pass. Meditation always helps." I considered the advice. It seemed like a good idea. "Why did you come in here anyway?" I asked. "Honestly, I just came to see how you were doing," he said, "and also to tell you to keep up the good work." "Good work?" I asked. A confused smile spread across my face. "Yeah, man," he continued. "I mean, you're a pretty good fighter for somebody who apparently hasn't been a Seneva all that long. I just feel like you weren't being yourself out there, though." "Well, how would you know that?" I asked. My face went red. He saw my offense and slouched himself back into the bench. "I didn't mean it in a bad way," he said. "I just don't think that style that you had going was yours. It felt like you were trying to match your stance with mine." I went red, this time blushing. "I get it, man, I get it. Keen isn't exactly matched to Radek. I'm not sure what I've done in your situation either." "Radek?" "Earth," he smiled. "Earth," I repeated. Gears meshed together and started turning in my head. My brain whirred, trying to rip a thought from the tip of my tongue. "You're not a Seneva from the fourth black hole, are you?" I asked. "The fourth one?" he quizzed. "Shit," I pondered, trying to remember the name. It starts with N. "Nereus?" "That's it." "Yeah," he said. "Cool," I frowned at myself. "There goes our destiny," I thought. Black holes just wanted us captured. "So, what are you doing working for Hesslick or Vestas anyway?" I asked him. "Why are you running with an apparent fugitive?" he asked me. I hummed, rubbing my chin. His point was good. "You seem like a nice enough bloke, though. Vestas, not so much." "I've got my reasons," he said. "Everybody has an asshole boss." "True," I shrugged. "Anyway, look, I'm needed elsewhere. I just wanted to keep you from going insane," he said, standing. "Yeah, well, thanks, man," I articulated poorly. He opened the door a sliver and slipped his thick physique through it. He closed it behind him. I sighed and considered what I wanted to do now. I did not know what was in store for me during my capture here. I threw a pillow onto the cold floor and sat upon it, cross-legged. I let the armor of Makey overcome me. It seeped from my thread and limped across my skin over my body. It clicked into place, my green eyes illuminated, and I could feel the leftover pain, like waking up tipsy from a heavy night out. The pain was dull and it throbbed. I held my stomach, glad that it didn't hurt any more than it already did. I breathed deeply, trying to divert my focus from the pain. I'd meditated before with Kuvalik, and he never would understate its importance, but I wasn't sure how to do it right in this instance. I could meditate on my powers, but to heal, instead of concentrating on how to do it, I let my mind run. "Makey," a voice asserted. I was groggily swept from my trance. I rubbed my face, surprised to remember that my hands were metallic and my face was a helmet. I sought the sensation of rubbing my eyelids, but I didn't get it here. "Nice that you're awake," Vestas remarked. He stepped into the room and closed the door behind him. I stumbled to my feet, startled, and slipped and fell back onto my ass. I could feel my heart kicking into overdrive, but there was nothing I could do. The door was locked and he had electric fingers. I stood, finally. "Are you ready to start your day as a useful Seneva to society?" he asked me. He had his hands interlocked, held before him merrily. A rotten sneer hung beneath the grill of his helmet. "Not really," I said. "I mean, I don't trust you one bit, but there's no way out of this, is there?" "Well, not unless your friends save you, and I wouldn't recommend it to them, though. They'll end up just in your position." Vestus's fingers pinted. He strode up to my position. I backed from him into the rear wall. "In an hour, I'm going to run a series of tests on your thread. Things like wavelength, quadravelocity, strength function, and others, as you manipulate your element." "That's it?" I scrunched my face. I was imagining probes and electrocution at a minimum. That doesn't sound so bad," I said. "It's not hard, really," Vestus agreed. "Then, if your friends don't come to collect you by the end of the day, I'll remove your thread." "What?" I gasped. I ripped out my staff and went to aim it at him. My chances of escape were naught, but worth a try now. He raised his hand like a gunslinger ready to shoot and blasted me with a bolt of his teal crutcher. Dum! I went to catch it in my free hand, but I missed its trajectory. It hit me in the armpit and raced to my thread. The armor of Makey was torn from my body, shattering off me. "Yes," he continued. I backed myself up to the wall. "I'll remove your thread. You might be a young Seneva, but you're a threat to security, and kidnapping isn't a light charge to have against my name. I'll remove your thread and set you free, never to bother me again." "You're kidding," I burst. That's got to be immoral, isn't it?" "No," he said plainly. "You've chosen how you want to be a Seneva in the real world. It's a threat to our image and our society. Not neutralizing you would be immoral for greater utility." I groaned, anger boiled within me, blood rushing to my face. "Hesek altered your mind, you know that, right?" I spat. "Excuse me? The equation you made to remove threads. Hesek is going to use that to remove all of the threads in the world." "That's ludicrous," he dismissed, swatting a hand and turning away. "That is immoral. He zapped your brain so that you'd forget discussing it. He's making you build a giant electrical transmitter to send the signal globally." Vestus turned back. I could see the consideration in his eyes, but it was swept away. "You're insane," he sneered. "We're making free energy. You're mentally unwell, Makey. Maybe I'll take your thread away early. Your friends have till 9 o'clock tonight." He snapped his foot down and pivoted to leave. "You've got an hour before we start experimentation. Don't cry any more conspiracy theories, or I will not make this easy for you." The door slammed behind him. The thick metal of the cell rocked. I looked up to the skylight. It was barely morning, dawnlight pouring in. I had time, but anxiety held me. He didn't deny the free energy machine, I said to myself. The vision must be at least partly true. I tucked myself back into bed whilst my Seneva's sensations were stripped from me. Now I had nothing else to do, and little will to fight the boredom. The bed was comfy. I rolled over to face the wall. "Makey," an ethereal, holy voice whispered into the room and echoed off the metal. I was surprised to hear a voice when the door hadn't opened, and more surprised to have yet another visitor. I assumed I hadn't heard it, so rustled up tighter into the thick doona. "Makey," it came again. I snickered in disbelief and turned over in the bed to see that I wasn't imagining it. There was a fully black figure standing by the bed. "Wah!" I gasped, flailing wildly under the sheets. My heart burst to my ribs. My eyes popped out of their sockets. I looked at the figure again. It was smoky, with purple veins and eyes. It was Kuvalik. "Kuvalik?" I asked. "How the hell did you get in here?" "I was getting my tea when I sensed that you were not at home," he said cheerily, "so I came to find you." I sat up on the bed, slicked back my hair, and caught my breath. "That's right," I reasoned. "You can go places." "That's right," he smiled. "What are you doing here in the middle of Heslek's compound?" I got caught. We were following the path of Destiny, and the guy we were following works for Heslek Investors, it turns out. Destiny wanted me to be trapped. "Interesting," he rubbed his smoky chin. "Although I wouldn't be so pessimistic about... Vestus is going to remove my thread by the end of the day." I cut him off. His expression dropped. "Oh. Yeah, oh," I sulked. "And even worse," I continued, "I'm absolutely useless as a Seneva. I mean, look, air is so useless that I had to throw boxes in combat. Why is Keen such a useless power to have?" Kuvalik huffed and rubbed his head. He took a seat on the bed next to me and tried to think himself through a complete convincing sentence. This took him a while, and I smugly waited. "Do you remember the first thing I told you, James? I gave you a sentence on the rules of being a Seneva." "What?" I said in my mind. "Don't use Quattro to hurt anybody?" "That too," Kuvalik said. "But I also told you that the point of Katra is not combat. The point of having these abilities is knowledge." "So?" "You're thinking about being a Seneva incorrectly, Makey. The powers are not for fighting." "Well, that's what I'm using them for these days," I crossed my arms. Then you're using them wrong. He sat tall. You don't yet have a proper understanding of what it is you can do or what you are doing. When you use Katra for knowledge, you will learn the full extent of your abilities in the context of the natural world. Better manipulation of air will allow you to better defend yourself. Believe me, Keen isn't useless. You should have seen the warriors of the ancient Keen king, the Vochtavlad. They were some of the most impressive Sneva to throw Katra, because they were so agile, reflexive, and acrobatic. They used their abilities as if they were the air. It was astounding. I forget that you're like 600 years old sometimes, I noted. Don't forget it, I've seen it all, he smiled. My point is, Makey, that you can't try to emulate anybody else with your abilities. You've got to use the air like a Keen and like Makey. So how do I learn to fight like a Keen, then? I asked. Kuvalik rubbed his forehead. Makey, he sighed. The shadows leaked from his fingers from the force of his frustration. What? I asked. I'm in dangerous situations all the time, it looks like. I'm in one right now. Defense is very important to me. It shouldn't be. I don't want to be weak, Kuvalik. I burst. He shifted backwards, stunned by my admission. I feel so weak. Amongst my friends, I'm weak. Natalie and Celeste, they blow me out of the water. I'm the human hairdryer. Even socially, my friends are more influential than I am. I've been given this power, but I'm still weak. I hate it. Kuvalik wasn't sure what to say. His smoky fingers twiddled. My labored emotional breath was all that filled the room. So you agree then? I asked. I think Sneva powers are reflections of the Sneva who own them, Kuvalik enunciated, picking his words carefully. If you were bold and forceful, perhaps you would be a Khadik, a Sneva of Earth. I think that you, James, and Make included, are diplomatic, wary of conflict, and resourceful. I don't think this is a weakness, or indicative of weakness. I think that you have a very unique way of finding solutions, and your powers reflect this. Right, I frowned. This probably isn't the answer you were hoping for, Kuvalik said, but it is the right answer. I said in the past that patience will help you become powerful like your friends, and that physical power will come with patience, but it is not going to be your strong point. My expression was blank. I thought to Dad, the Wolver man, the exact opposite of weakness in my mind. It wasn't that I thought I was weak, it was just that I wasn't him. He's a man. He was a man. And you're a Sneva, my subconscious told me, but I didn't find it helpful. I wanted to be both. Thanks for the advice, Kuvalik, I said to the ghost. Really, I'm sorry if these were hard words to hear. No, it's fine, I said. Hard words are often what you need, you know. You'd never harden up in a world full of fluffy pink pillows. He smiled. I laughed. So, what will you do now? He asked me. Well, I don't know. Can you help me get out of here? I don't think so. He looked around the room. I barely got in here without being sensed. I hope you don't find it selfish, but I don't want to lose my consciousness today. I've been holding on to it for 500 years. No, that's pretty understandable, I smiled. Look, go walk through the walls or something. But what will you do? He asked me. I don't know, I said again. But I've been thinking about everything wrong. Anyway, maybe if I try to solve this problem like the keen I am, I'll find my answer.